And then we solved them. And then depending whether it was an and or an or, we ended up looking at the ends as the answer, or we looked at the middle as the answer, right? By the way, I did post the first, I think, 4 assignments, the answers in PowerSchool, or Schoology. So if I return to paper and you missed some stuff, you can pull up the key. You can always come in here and look at the keys also, because I have them there. I want you to use them. I want you to look at what you did wrong, figure it out, and not miss it again. All right, before we start in with our notes, there are 2 things I want to give you. One thing I'm going to give you are the practice tests for this chapter, because we are in the last section, so we'll be coming up soon. The answers to the practice test are posted in Schoology, but we're going to go through all of them together anyhow, so you're probably not going to need that, but if you want to do them on your own, you can print new ones and do them again. All right, but I want to take just 1 minute, since this is going to be our first test, and I want you to look at this. Okay? You should see this. Okay? See up top it says practice test number 1. Notice that it's set up just like a test. It's got answer blanks, got all the problems all written out. And then, oh my gosh, then what do we have? Practice test number 2. And it has the same questions, maybe in a different order, but the exact same questions. Okay, so there they are. Here we go, just like a test. Oh my gosh, what do we got? Practice test 3. And it has exactly the same problems, again, maybe in a different order, but the exact same problems. So, as we are looking ahead, it's going to be a little while yet, but as we're looking ahead to our first test, I heard Olivia say, I'm going to pick on her because I heard her say, I'm just not good at math. Well, I don't know about that. Maybe she's not, I don't know. But, is she nervous about what this test is going to look like? Nope, because she knows exactly what it's going to look like. If you want to get 100% on this test, know how to do every problem on the practice test, because those are exactly the problems on the test. I mean, I changed the numbers, but the wording is the same. Format's the same. It's my handwriting, little answer blanks over here. No surprises. There is 0 reason to be nervous. I think you should be a little pumped up, just like you are before a race or a game or something. You should be a little pumped up, coming in, game day, taking a test. But there is absolutely no reason to be anxious about it. Be prepared. That's it. Be prepared. Okay. So set those aside. We are not ready for them today. We will go over them problem by problem. What we do need to focus on today is this board, you're killing me. Yep, we're going to have another quiz. Yep, not today. We're practicing today. When will our quiz be? Next time we have class. So I don't know if that's tomorrow or the next day. We have class tomorrow?
Yeah, we have.
Yes.
Okay, then it's tomorrow. How many problems will the quiz have on it?
3.
At the most 3. Right? At the most 3. I may decide to only pick 2 of these. May only pick 1 of them. But these are the 3 that are options for the quiz. Okay? So here we go. This is the practice quiz. Let's go. Write the equation of the line. Okay. How do we even start this deal?
Find the slope.
Find the slope. So the girl who's not good at math says, find the slope. And she is exactly right. You're not going to live that down, Olivia, because it's one of my pet peeves. We're all good at math, we just have to practice. We may not all be math champions, but we can do it. All right, here we go. How do we find the slope?
Y minus y over x
So
minus
7 minus 1 over -2 minus -4. Guys, if you do 7 minus 1, you gotta do -2 minus -4. Okay, those are gonna become positive, so it looks like I have 6 over 2. So my slope is 3. We aren't done. So if you put in the answer blank m equals 3, you're not going to get full credit for the problem because there's another piece to it. You're writing an equation, so what do we do now? You can. I like point slope personally, and the other day most of you did also, so I'm going to change it into that, but I think we'll do, I'll pick a point, y minus 1 equals 3x minus -4. So pick a point, I use this one, you could use this one, doesn't make a bit of difference. Y minus the y coordinate equals your slope times x minus your x coordinate. Does that look familiar? If we were doing point slope, we would be done. But we're going to slope intercept, so we're going to get y by itself. This becomes a positive. So I got y equals 3x plus 13. Right? All right, number 2, solve. This is exactly what you did yesterday. It's a squared equation, but it doesn't tell you how. So you can do it however you want. What do you think when you look at that? How do you think you might want to solve that? Probably the quadratic formula, because even if you like completing the square, even if you like that, the first step would have to be to divide by 4, and what's going to happen? Lots of yucky fractions. So I think we'll use the quadratic formula, which, by the way, some of you don't have memorized yet, and that is just ridiculous. Get it memorized. So we have A, B is -1, and C is 2. I'm going to write the formula down. You can tell it to me.
Negative b plus minus square root b squared minus 4 over 2a.
Yeah. That's it. So for us, in our problem, -1 is going to be 1, plus or minus the square root of 1. Some of you are still putting a negative here. Remember, this is b squared, and when you square something, it becomes positive, unless it's I. I is its own animal. These don't have I's in them, right? A number, when it's squared, becomes positive. So 1 minus 4 times 4 times 2. Uh-oh, speaking of I's. Is that going to be negative under there?
Yeah.
So we're going to have 1 plus or minus the square root of 1 minus 32. 4 times 4 is 16, times 2 is 32. Always, when you have a negative, oh, that's going to be -31. When you have a negative under there, you pull out the I, right? And I think that's my answer. Do remember that even if this had been like a 4, it wasn't, but if it were, would we cancel here?
No.
No, because in these triangle-shaped problems where there's 3 parts, if you're going to cancel, you have to do it with each part. All right, Jude, why was your hand up?
It's for the other question, just like, what's like the point slope form equations, just like I put on the paper.
This is in your notes. Look at your notes. All right, and the last question. Oh, this we did yesterday. These are easy. What do we do with this problem?
Foil.
Foil. All right, so it's a straight foil. Okay, so I foil, so I got 3 plus 12i
Equals 12i minus bi.
minus 6i
Minus 24i squared.
minus 24i squared. Did I copy it right? I heard somebody saying something. Did I copy it right?
Yeah.
And then I gotta remember, what about I squared? It's -1, so it changes this into a plus 24. Then I can add a 3 and a 24. And I can add a 12i and a -6i. And I'm done. Right? Easy. So tomorrow, I guess, we'll have a quiz. And the quiz will be these kinds of problems right here. Okay. Alrighty, Dighty, let's get our homework, our notes out. We're gonna do some fun stuff today. We're gonna continue our conversation from yesterday. So get your notes out and look at that last problem we did yesterday. It's the first one in number 2. Now, the one I have up here looks very much like it. Same style of problem. So look at what we did yesterday. What do you think we're gonna do with this problem? What?
Move the 10 over.
Well, I could. I want you to remember that anytime you have an x squared, it is solvable by completing a square, and it's solvable with the quadratic formula. But we talked about this yesterday. What is always going to be faster? Just factor it. Just factor it. That is always going to be faster. If you don't want to factor, can't figure it out, whatever, you can always do the quadratic formula or complete the square. That will always work. It's just going to take longer. And then you run the risk of making arithmetic mistakes. But it will always work. How does this one factor though? You should be able to factor these easy ones like this. How's that factor? X. I heard a plus 10 and a minus 1.
Yeah.
Because when I FOIL this, I have a -1 and a positive 10. Doesn't that add up to 9? So then I draw a number line. Every time I do one of these inequalities, anytime I have a less than or greater than, I'm going to draw a number line. And I'm going to put 2 dots on the number line. Where are the 2 dots for this problem going to be?
Then -1.
Watch it.
It's -10.
It's -10 and positive 1. We talked about this yesterday. I know your temptation is to say positive 10, but remember, when you solve this, doesn't that become a -10? So the dots actually go with the opposite of what you think. And I filled them in. They're solid dots. Would you agree with that? So think about yesterday. If you can remember what we did yesterday, think about it. We always had 2 dots on the number line. All the problems we did yesterday, absolute value, everything. We had 2 dots on the number line. And our answer was always either the ends, where we had the infinity stuff, or it was the little bit in between. right? Every time, that's what happened. So your answer is either going to be this little chunk right here, or it's going to be the ends. So to figure out which one it is, I like to pick a number in between these two. In other words, I'm gonna see, am I supposed to be shading in here? I don't know, I'm gonna pick a number and see. So maybe I'll pick 0. Is 0 an okay choice? And it's easy. So 0 plus 10 is 10. And 0 minus 1 is -1. Now I'm multiplying those. This is a multiply problem. So what's 10 times -1? -10. Is -10 less than 0?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. So that means that the number I picked in between works, so this is where I shade. If it works, you shade it. And remember, you only have 2 choices. You're either gonna shade the ends, or you're gonna shade the middle. If the middle works, then that's where you shade. If the middle doesn't work, then you shade the ends. Those are your options. Except in a very strange, weird problem. And normally, those are your options. So, how do I write my answer? I write it as an interval. What's it gonna be? Bracket, -10, comma, 1, bracket. Why am I using brackets? Because the dots are filled in because of the or equal to. All right. Let's look at the next one. Doesn't it seem like it's about the same thing? Does it factor?
Yeah.
How does it factor? By the way, I will only give you factorable problems of this kind. So when I say this, does it factor, the answer is always gonna be yes for these inequalities. What are the factors?
X -5.
-5
Plus 2.
plus 2. Remember, it has to multiply to -10 and add up to -3. So 5 and 2 are my options. A couple of you are staring at me blankly. If you can't do that, what are you going to do? You still need to find your dots. How are you gonna find your dots? Quadratic formula or complete the square, whichever one you like best. It will tell you where the dots are. Factoring is faster because it tells me where the dots are right now. Where are they?
5 and -2.
5 and -2. This is a number line, so make sure they're in the right order, and obviously put them in the right spot. Now, I know my answer is either gonna be the ends or it's gonna be the middle. So I'm just gonna pick a number in the middle. Oh, can I use 0 again?
Yep.
0 is just such a nice, easy number, so I'm gonna use 0 again. I'm checking 0 in here. If it makes this true, then I'm gonna shade there. If it doesn't make it true, then I'm gonna shade out here. So here we go, 0. 0 gives me -5 times 2. What's -5 times 2?
-10.
Is -10 less than 0?
Yes.
It is. So I shade in there again. If it works, shade it. Gives you a true sentence, shade it. And answer will be
Parentheses, -2, 5.
yep, comma in between. And they're both parentheses because the dots are open, right?
Yippity.
Okay, perfect. All right, one more. Try D on your own. Quinn, were you able to get it factored? Did you start by factoring, were you able to do that?
Let's see.
It's gotta multiply to give you 6.
And then, x plus 6, or then x minus 1,
Okay, now, this happens all the time.
or flip
Okay, what's wrong with this? This is a huge mistake. It happens all the time. He is not unusual at all. Declan?
They don't multiply into positive 6.
Yeah. See this positive 6? So whatever I put here has to multiply to positive 6. So I can't use a positive and a negative.
Plus plus.
It has to be a plus plus in this problem because there's no minuses. But it can't be 6 and 1 because that would give me 7. So what multiplies to give me 6, Quinn?
2 and 3,
There you go. And what's 2 plus 3?
5.
Beautiful. That's what we want. That's what we want. Now, where are our dots? -3 and -2. And they're closed in. Now, I've been kind of encouraging you to pick a number in here. I don't want to this time because the only number I picked in here would have to be a fraction, wouldn't it? That's fine. If you don't care, go ahead and do it. I like 0. I'm gonna try 0. Now, 0 is out here, correct?
Yeah.
So just pay attention to where 0 is. If it works, okay, I'm putting in 0, I get 2 times 3. Is 6 bigger than 0?
Yes.
So that means
The outsides.
the outsides work, because isn't 0 this time on the outside?
Yeah.
And it worked, so I shade the outsides. Now, what does that mean my answer looks like?
It's negative infinity,
Negative infinity,
comma negative 3,
comma -3, and what kind of
bracket.
bracket here and here?
No, just parentheses on
Parentheses on the infinity always, right?
union.
And then our union symbol,
Bracket -2.
which is how we separate our intervals if we have more than one in our answer. And then what'd you say?
Bracket -2.
Bracket -2
Infinity.
and positive infinity. If you're still struggling with that, remember, negative infinity's on this side, so this is gonna be one interval, negative infinity comma -3, and this is gonna be the other one, -2 comma infinity. Now, just when you thought that maybe we're sort of getting all this, look at this next problem. Lordy, 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 what's different about this next one?
Cubed and squared.
We've got cubes, we've got squares, we've got regular x's, oh my goodness. Do not think about the quadratic formula. The quadratic formula works with x squared. That's what quadratic means. If you've got a cube, you can't do that. You obviously can't complete the square because this is a cube. What in the world? What are we gonna do? We're gonna factor it. And when I look at this problem, and this time you do not have a choice, boys and girls. The only way to do it is to factor it. So when you look at this, is there a GCF?
Yes.
What is it?
X.
So let's take the x out. Please don't get rid of it, you have to keep it, it's part of the answer. So we keep the x, and then what are we gonna have?
X squared
X squared
minus 2x
minus 2x
minus 8.
minus 8. Can this then be broken down like Quinn did a moment ago, factoring it? So it's gotta multiply to give you -8 and add up to -2. What do you think?
-4 plus
X minus 4, x plus 2, Scout says? Now, I'm 63, I do math for a living, I still check, every time I do a quick check. If I FOIL this back, I get a positive 2 and a negative 4. Does that add up to this? Yeah, I'm good. I'm good, or you're good, yes, this is it. Now, here's my number line. This is where things get different. How many dots are gonna be on the number line now? 3. Every X gets a dot. So clearly, we're gonna have a dot at 4, and a dot at negative 2, but we're also gonna have a dot at 0. When you have an X that doesn't have a number attached to it, then that's 0, because it's got 0 attached to it. Every X will have a dot. So if you have 3 X's, you're gonna have 3 dots. If you have 4 X's, you're gonna have 4 dots. Now, all of our kind of shading ideas go out the window because now we have more sections, right? We don't have just outside and inside anymore. We've got lots of sections. But the way we do it doesn't change. Pick any number you want that isn't negative 2, 0, or 4. You can't pick a dot number. Pick any other number. What's a number?
3.
3. If you're picking 3, then this is the area you're checking, right? Right here? So let's put 3 in and see what happens. If you put a 3 here, you're gonna just have 3. 3 minus 4 is negative 1. And 3 plus 2 is 5. Now, these are always multiplied. So 3 times negative 1 times 5 is negative 15. Is negative 15 bigger than 0? No. So that means this little section is not shaded. It didn't work. The number we picked didn't work. So if I'm not shading this, here's something really cool. If I'm not shading this, I am shading this, and I am shading this, and I'm not shading this. The shading always alternates. So when you've got this number line split up into sections, it's always gonna be shade, not shade, shade, not shade, shade, not shade. It's always gonna alternate. So, as soon as I figured out that this section didn't work, not shade, then I immediately knew the 2 on either side of it did shade. And of course, then this one can't, because they have to alternate. Are you still with me? That's a lot. So now I need to write my answer. So my answer is going to be 2 pieces. It isn't going to look like this totally, but it's going to be 2 pieces. It's going to have the little U in between, the union symbol. What does this piece look like?
Parentheses negative 2.
Parentheses negative 2.
Parentheses 0.
Right? It's just that little block of numbers between negative 2 and 0. And then this one does look like that. What's this one going to look like?
Parentheses 4.
That's it. So that's my answer. Oh, that was a lot. Here's another one. Alright, so let's keep going real slow. We're gonna go slow through this one too. Keshad, you wanna sit up for me, please? Thank you. I don't want my boss walking by and thinking I'm boring you. Okay, here we go. Step 1, factor. And all we can do is pull out 1x. And when we pull out an x, we will be left with x squared minus 1. Now, I don't know if we've talked much about this or not. That's kind of a special thing. X squared minus 1, x squared minus 4, x squared minus 9. we call this the difference
Difference
of
of squares.
squares. Does anybody remember how the difference of squares factors? Jacob?
X plus 1, X minus 1.
Exactly. X plus one, X minus one. So these are gonna happen a lot to us in the course of the year. So let's make sure everybody's clear on that. If we had x squared minus 9, that would factor as x plus 3, x minus 3.
Yeah.
If we had x squared minus 16, x plus 4, x minus 4. So whenever we see the difference of squares, that is x squared minus a square number, 1, 4, 9, 16. Then it's gonna break down into x plus, x minus, every time. Okay, where are my dots?
-1 and 1.
I
And
got
zero.
1 at -1, and it's gonna be closed in. I got 1 at 1, it's gonna be closed in, but I also have 1 at
Zero.
0. Because why?
Zero to those.
Every x gets a dot. And when there's no number attached to it, when it's not x plus 5 or x minus something, it's a 0, just like this one was. Alright, so now we gotta figure out where we're gonna shade, and we know it's gonna alternate, but we just gotta know, okay, is this shaded or not, or is this shaded or not, I don't know, I need to pick a number and check. So, any number except these are good, so what do you think?
2.
2? So you are checking, if you pick 2, guys, you are checking this part. Alright, so 2 would be 2, I'm putting it right in here for the x's. 2 times 3 times 1. Put a 2, I'm checking 2. You could check a different number, I'm checking 2. 2, 2 plus 1, 2 minus 1. 2 times 3 times 1 is 6. Is 6 less than 0?
No,
No. So what does that tell me?
we shade it in the chart.
This is not shaded. This chunk is not shaded, which automatically means this chunk is, this chunk is not, and this chunk is. Your dots split the number line into pieces. The shaded pieces alternate. So as soon as we figured out that one didn't work, we know what happens the rest of the time. All right, what's the answer look like?
Parentheses, negative infinity, comma, -1, bracket, union, bracket, 0, comma, 1.
Scout says this is the answer.
I believe it. That looks
You
good.
believe Scout?
Looks good.
I think she knows some of what she's talking about.
Hmm?
I think she knows some of what she's talking about.
She knows a little about what she's talking about?
Just a little.
All right, tell me, who's got a question about something? There's a lot there. This was not part of the problem. There's a lot there. Who's got a question?
Where'd you get the 3 from? 2 times 3 times
I'm putting 2 in. Somebody said check 2, so I put a 2 here, a 2 here, and a 2 here. What's 2 plus 1? You don't have to pick 2. There's nothing special about 2. That's just the number they wanted to check. All right?
I thought when you had to like take a number to check if it was right, I thought it had to be a number like inside like the.
It doesn't have to be. I like to do that when I only have 2 dots on my number line. I like to pick one in between, if there's a handy one in between. We had that one example where we had a 2 and a 3. Well, I'm not picking 2 and a half, so I just picked out here. You can pick wherever you want. Just remember that wherever the number is you pick, that's where you're trying to decide if to shade or not. So if I pick a 2, then this is the area I'm looking at. If I picked a -2, this would be the area I was looking at. You're allowed to use any numbers you want. Okay? All right. Well, now we're gonna embark upon our last, thing. We're getting close. We might finish up today. Our last thing are what we call projectile motion. Are any of you in physics?
No.
Well, if you were, you would talk about projectile motion. I will always give you the formula for projectile motion. Now, it is on your note sheet, it is right there in the notes, and I will always give that to you. So, on a test, that will be written there for you, just like it's written here. You need to be able to put the numbers into the formula that you're gonna use for this problem. So, in the formula, T stands for time. Okay, so every T stands for time. V sub naught, and that's the way that is read, V sub naught, V sub 0. That stands for the initial velocity. Okay, so think about throwing a football, or throwing a basketball, or throwing a rock, throwing something. When you throw it, it starts out going a certain speed. That's called your initial velocity. S sub naught is the initial height. So if you are shooting a firecracker from ground level, it's on the ground, its initial height would be 0. But if you are standing on top of a building and you throw something, then your initial height is whatever, 15 feet, however tall the building is. Right? Okay. This is the final height, or the height at time t. So, the question will say something like, how high is the ball after 2 seconds? How high is it at time 2? So this is like your answer over here. This tells me how high it is at a certain point in time. All right, so now we're gonna look at the first problem. A ball is thrown off the top of a building 12 feet tall with an initial velocity of 18 feet per second. Step 1, write the formula. S sub t equals -16t squared plus what? What am I gonna put in here for the initial velocity? 18. Now there is a t here, so don't forget to include the t. Is there an initial height? Is this thing being thrown from the ground, or is there an initial height?
12 feet.
12. So this is now your equation that you are going to use to solve all the parts of this problem. So this problem has an A, B, and C. This is the equation we're going to use to solve it. So your first step is plug in this and plug in this. That has to be given to you in the problem. It will say that. Do remember though, that if the ball is being thrown from the ground, that will be 0. Okay. All right, so that's my formula. When will the ball hit the ground? When will the ball hit the ground? Okay. If if I want the ball to be on the ground, I have to plug in, I'm either gonna plug in a number here, this is one letter, it looks like two, but it's really one, it's a height. Or I gotta plug in here. Now T stands for time, this stands for height. If I want the ball on the ground, what am I gonna plug in where?
Final height.
Height will be 0. Won't this be 0? If the ball is on the ground, isn't my height going to be 0?
But I thought the ball was 12 feet high.
No. It was when I initially threw it. But what happens when you throw a ball up into the air? Doesn't it eventually come down? And that's what we're trying to figure out. So if I drew a picture of that scout, here's my axis, here's 12 feet above the ground, here I am standing here, and I throw the ball up into the air. I want to know, when does it hit the ground? Which it eventually will, right? Creaky. Okay, so my height, this is my height. This is my time. When the question says when, that means you're looking for the time. So I put a 0 in for the height because this is what I'm looking for right here. That's the point I'm looking for. Okay. Have you ever seen an equation that looked like that before?
Yeah.
Yeah, the last time you saw it, these were X's, not T's. What kind of equation is that? That's a quadratic, isn't it? I'm not gonna try to factor that. I'm not gonna complete the square on that. I'm just gonna use my quadratic formula. This is for, the numbers are big. Yes, you can use your calculator, the numbers are big. So what will T equal? Here we go. Set up your quadratic formula. T equals
Negative 18.
-18 plus or minus the square root of
18 squared.
18 squared, which I think is 324, but double check me on that.
Yes.
Minus 4 times A times C, all over 2A, 2 times -16. I know it's a mess, guys. Real life problems are messy. But we have a calculator, so it's all good. We just do it, let our calculator do the work. So I'm gonna figure out what's under that radical sign. So I'm gonna do 324 minus 4 times -16 times 12. I got 1092 under there, but that might be wrong, double check it.
Is correct.
Now I'm gonna let my calculator do everything. I'm not gonna ask you to reduce that radical or anything. I want you to give me T values. So one of them is -18 plus the square root of 1092 over -32. And one of them is -18 minus the square root of 1092 over -32. Would you agree with that? That those are our two answers? So now I'm going to my calculator. -18 plus the square root, I have the second square root, 1092 equals, make sure you hit equals, divided by -32. I got -0.47. I'm doing the second one. If you didn't get -0.47, type what I'm typing. -18 minus the square root, so I have the second square root, 1092 equals divided by -32. I got basically 1.6. some of you using your little calculators, remember, those are not allowed in this class. So I don't care if you use them now, but you will not use those on a test. So I would suggest you get your hands on a graphing calculator and you learn how to type this in on a graphing calculator, because otherwise you're doing it by hand, because it's the only calculator you're gonna have. Okay, got it? Okay,
How do you put that in like a fraction on that calculator?
divided by, type what I tell you to type, clear. Negative 18
-18
minus
minus
square root, second square root,
square root
1092
1092
equals
equals
divided by
divided by
negative 32.
yeah, I got it.
Yeah, that's how you type it in.
Thank you.
Now, I want you to look at your two answers. What was the question again? When is the ball on the ground? Does this answer make sense?
No.
No, it's negative, right? Negative time, that doesn't make sense. Now, graphically, remember Scout wanted a picture? Graphically, it's back here, but that isn't part of the problem because we started at the top of the building. So this is what we call an extraneous root. It's one of those that just doesn't fit. So what is the answer to the problem? 1.6 seconds. That's when it hits the ground. 1.6 seconds. All right, next part of the question, we're gonna use the same exact equation, so the one I have circled there. This time I wanna know, when will it be 15 feet above the ground? So here's the picture, we've thrown it up. At some point, it's gonna be 15 feet up here. Okay, so when is that gonna happen? Well, to go back to your equation, you have two variables. You have the height position, this is height, looks like two letters, forget that, it's one letter, height, and you have time. Where am I gonna put the 15? Is the 15 gonna go where the height is, or is the 15 gonna go where the time is? Height, in the height, because it's a height. So I'm gonna put 15 equals negative 16t squared plus 18t plus 12. You are gonna use the same equation for every part of the problem. So this time we put a 15 here. In part A, we put a 0 there because the ball was on the ground. Now it's 15 feet above the ground. How do I solve that? Subtract the 15, so 0 equals negative 16t squared plus 18t minus 3. And then guess what? We do exactly what we just did. We just had different numbers this time. Some of them are different. Right? So here we go. T equals negative 18 plus or minus the square root of 18 squared minus 4 times negative 16 times negative 3 all over negative 32. Everybody okay with that? Let's see if we can get this done. 324 minus 4 times negative 16 times negative 3. I got 132 under my radical. Let me try it again. Yeah, anybody else get 132 under the radical?
Yeah.
Okay, so my two answers are negative 18 plus the square root of 132 over negative 32, and negative 18 minus the square root of 132 over negative 32. So if you're having trouble, I'm going to take this one in first. Negative 18 plus second square root 132 equals divided by negative 32. I got 0.203. Yay, nay, anybody else? Good?
Yeah.
All right, now I'll do the second one. Negative 18 minus second square root 132 equals divided by negative 32. I got 0.922. Guys, how can there be two answers to this problem? When is the ball 15 feet above the ground? How can there be two answers to the problem?
One's extreme, yes.
Look at my picture. This is where 15 is. Are there two places where the ball is 15 feet above the ground? Once on the way up and once on the way down. Yeah, those are both answers. So it takes it 0.2 seconds to get up, and then it gets to its peak and starts down, and then it takes it 0.92 seconds to get here. And it takes it 0.96 seconds to land, or 1.6, whatever it was, to land on the ground. Got it? Okay, we're gonna do the last part of that next time. We will finish next time and begin our review.